So we'll do now the Maimer Posach Eliyahu Va'amar. The Rebbe said this on Yutes Kislev in the year Tovshin Tes Vav, and it was later on published, as it says here in the note. It was published in the booklet that they gave out for the 19th of Kislev, Tinosi, the year Tovshin Nun Aleph, for the Yutes Kislev, the festival of redemption, Chag HaGeula Yutes Kislev, the day the Alter Rebbe got released of prison in the year Tov Kuf Nun Tes. This was on Yutes Kislev, Shnas Tov Nun Tinosi, Tovshin Nun Aleph. This is based on a mimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, as we'll see inside. So, begins the mimer, Siyaytish Mayutis Kislev Tovshin Tezvav. Posach Eliyahu Ve'amar. We say this is a piece of the Zohar, and we say it every Shabbos, that Eliyahu opened up and he said, Riboin Almin, Master of the world, Antu Chad Veloy Bechushba. You are one, but not counted. Sometimes there's 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it means one, like only. You're number one, but you're not in the count. Antu Ilo Al Kol Ilon. You're on top of all the top. And you're stimo al kol sitim, you're hidden of all the hiddens. Leis machshava tfisa b'chlal. There is no thought that can grasp you at all. So he's talking about various different descriptions about Hashem, saying you're one without a cheshbon. You're above, you're higher than all those that are higher. You're hidden of all those hidden. No thought can grasp you. And then finally, he says, Antu da pikas asar tikunim. You set forth 10 tikunim. The 10 tikunim vekarinu lohoin asar sfiron. We call them the 10 spheres. Those are the 10 spheres. Chochma bina das, as he continues over there, in the Hemshech and the Posach Eliyahu. What exactly are these different levels that he enumerates here in this Posach Eliyahu? So, Mevair Kveit Kedushas Meidichom Admur. B'Mamor Dibra Maschil Zeh. So my father-in-law, the Rebbe, in the Maimer that begins with this opening, what's the connection to Yutes Kislev? The Rebbe explains in the Ha'oreh, as we'll see soon. But he said this Maimer she'omrei b'Yutes Kislev hey Tovshin Beis. He said it in Yutes Kislev in the year Tovshin Beis. He says shechoshiv kan kol hamadreges, that he counts here all the levels. Shemei atzmus oir ein sof ad ha'eser sefiros da'atzilus. Starting with the essence, the oir ein sof, the infinite light, until he goes through the 10 sefiros da'atzilus. Those are all hinted in these various descriptions of Hashem. And he translates. Antu Chad, when it says Antu Chad, that the first one, Antu Chad, is Hu Atzmus Oirin Sof. That is the essence of the Oirin Sof. Ubi Keser, and when we talk about the level of Keser as the level of Atzmus, the level of Keser, Upnimius HaKeser, that is the inner level of Keser, which is the level of Atik. Keser has basically 2 levels, the inner of Keser and the outer of Keser. The inner of Keser is called Atik, the outer of Keser is called Arich. So the level of Antu Chad Veloy Bechushban, that's the Pnimius HaKeser, that's the level of Atik. And And on this level, the level of Pnimis HaKeser, on Atik, he says, that it's not in the count. Keser is not in the count. The Pnimis HaKeser, Atik is not in the count. He is not in the count of those matters that are enumerated afterwards. For all the matters that are counted later on, even the very first one, Antu Ilo al Kol Ilon, Kol Gam Ilo Kol Ilon, higher than all the higher. That is also Hein Be'ein Aruich. They are no comparison. Legabe Antu Chad, relative to the level you are one, the level of Atik Primis HaKeser. That's why he, Atik, is not counted with them. Loi b'chushba. That's Antu Chad. What is the level of Antu Ilo al Kol Ilon? So Antu Ilo al Kol Ilon hu chitzonis HaKeser. That's the external of Keser, which is the level of Arich. Then it goes further. So we have Atik and Arich, Pnimis HaKeser, Chitzonis HaKeser. Then we have Setimo al Kol Setimo, al Kol Setimim. Stima Kol Setimim, hidden of all hidden, Hu Chochmo da Arich. Within Arich itself, that's the level of Chochmo of Arich. And Leis Machshova Tvisa Bach Klal is referencing Upnimis HaChochma, that's the inner of Chochma. So Stima, the Stimin is Chochma da Arich, and Leis Machshova Tvisa Bach Klal, no thought can grasp, is the Pnimis HaChochma. Upnimis HaChochma. And then goes on to the Apikas Asas Tikunim. You set forth the 10 Tikunim. Heim ha'eser sfiras the Atzilus. Those are the 10 sfiras the Atzilus. That's hinted in here, this whole Seder Ishtalshalus, as explained in the Maimer, for the different things mentioned in this Pasuk Elio. Umevayer, and the Maimer explains the Hatam Sheba Atzilus Hasfiras Heim B'mispar Eser Tikunim Hu. Why is it that in Atzilus the number is 10 Tikunim? Is ki Atzilus u'bechlal Seder HaIshtalshlus. Because Atzilus is included in the order of Ishtalshlus. It's part of the Ishtalshlus Gevul. It's limited. That's why there's the number 10. In other words, doesn't start from Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, but Atzilus itself has 10 because it's a number. It's limited. It's defined. It has 10 tikkunim. Because Atzilus is part of Ishtalshlus, meaning it's part of Gevul, it's part of the limitation. And when there is Ishtalshlus, over there applies the number. So there can be 10. So from this it's understood. That the matters that he counts here can be generally divided into 3 categories, in 3 groups. Amtuchad, the first one, you are one, Shekoyi Kinal al Atik, which goes on Atik, which means Shehu Net, Atik means remove, Shehu Netak Umuvdal Mehishtalshlus, that he's removed and he's separate from Hishtalshlus. That's the level of Amtuchad, that's the level of Primis HaKeser, of Atik. Then the second step, Amtu Ilo al Kol Iloin, is already the level of Chitzonius HaKeser, which is the level of Arich. So therefore, that is already a level that has a connection. It's still higher than Shtalshalus, it's Keser. But it's still connected. It's not removed from Ishtalshalus, but it's connected to Ishtalshalus. While it's higher, but connected. And to that Pikas Asar Tikunim. No, then we have the two levels within it, the level of Chochmah, the Primis Chochmah, but the level of Asar Tikunim, the Amtu da Pikas Asar Tikunim, Heim Ha'eser Sviris da Atzilus. So that's Ishtalshalus. So you have beyond Ishtalshalus, totally removed. You have above Ishtalshalus, connected to Ishtalshalus, and you have Ishtalshalus. And the Maimer continues. Shal Yidei ha'avoida de mesiras nefesh, through the service of self-sacrifice, mamshichim mibechilas antuchad ba'eser sfiras. We draw down from the level of antuchad, from the level of Primis HaKeser, from Atik into the Eser Sfiras. Vayidei zeh hagilui, and when we bring down that revelation of Atik in the world, that is which is higher than Teva comes down into nature. So the Rebbe brings down in Ha'aris 6, this is the connection to Yutis Kislev, because Yutis Kislev, when it was Poda B'Sholem Nafshi, that refers to that it was in a way that you have the redemption through Teva. It says over there the redemption was dressed up in Teva. That's sort of the higher of Teva coming in through into the level of nature. Okay. Base. From this, that in the saying of Pasach Eliyahu, he says, "Antu da pikas asar tikunim chulu." Why did the Eibishter set forth the 10 tikunim? Is la'anhoga b'hoin almin. So God should conduct the world. The world needs to be conducted through the Eser Sfiras. Shahatam al ha'atzolas ha'eser Sfiras da'atzilusu. What is the reason why Hashem was maitzil, separated the 10 Sfiras and created and brought about these 10 Sfiras da'atzilus? So that through them, through these 10 Sfiras, should be the conduct of the world. So move on, it's understood. The Hamadreges Shalemailo Ma'aser Sfiras, that those steps, those levels that are higher than 10 Sfiras, Heim Lemailo Man Hogas Ha'olamos, so they must be higher than running the world. The Eibishter creates the 10 Sfiras to run the world, but the higher than the 10 Sfiras do not run the world. So based on that, Gam Hagilui, the Antu Ilah, so also the level of Antu Ilah, which is the level of Arich, we have to say that it's not running the world. That is not above nature. So, and the Maimer says, that to bring down the Gamma Gilui, the Antu Ilah, even that Hulamayla Matava. Maimer Eimer, Sham Shochas Hagilu Shalamayla Mahatava, who are Yidei Ham Shocha Mebchinas Antuchad. So even the level of Antu Ilah, Chitzonius Hakeser, the level of Atik is beyond nature, because the Eibishter needs the Esser Spheres to create nature. And in the Mamorim, he says that we bring down the revelation of higher than Teva is by bringing down the level of Antuchad. How could we bring down the level of Antuchad, which is above nature, which is above Ishtalshlus? Also, we need to understand the kivon shegam han hogas oilam shal piteva. Even when we say that the world is run by nature, it's that what she'oirein sof manig as oilam be'oifen zeh. It's the Ein Sof that leads the world in such a way. What does it mean that the world runs according to nature? It means it's not nature runs itself, but the Ein Sof runs it according to nature. As we say, Antu da apikas asar tikunim chululan hoga boinomim. Hashem is lan hoga boinomim. You have set forth these 10 tikunim so that Anhogav, so you will run the world. The ant is going to run the world. So we already have the Ein Sof running the world, because ant who lan hogav that because has to go to. So lomot sorich shebehateva tiya hamshochas hagilu shelemayla mahateva. Why is it necessary that in Teva we should bring down the revelation which is above Teva when Teva itself is being run by above Teva, is being run by Hashem? So the Hagam, but it's different. When we say that the Eibishter runs the world through the 10 spheres, that means that they dress up first in the 10 spheres, not directly from the ant. Zagam Ein Sof Manig Sa'ilom Al Yidei Spheres. Ein Sof Manig Sa'ilom Al Yidei Spheres. This that the Ein Sof leads the world through the 10 spheres, who Al Yidei is Slapshus Seiba Kelim. That's the spheres that is through being dressed up. So to speak, the Ein Sof dresses up. It's not the Ein Sof himself comes down in its pure form, but it dresses up in the Kelim of Eser Spheres. The Hanhogas ha'oilamos hima'oira mislabesh ba'oilamos. The way the leads the world is from the light that dresses up in the world. In other words, when it comes down into Bria Yitzira Asiya, how does that run? The light dresses up in the world. How could the light dress up in the world? The light itself could not dress up unless it first dresses up in the Kelim of Atzilus, and from there it goes and it dresses up in the world. In order for the light, the oil, to dress up in the world, is by dressing up first in the Kelim. So Memela, this is not really the Ein Sof, the higher than Teva, revealed there. It's revealed through the Ein Sof dressing up in the Kelim. But the Rebbe says still that level of Ein Sof in the Oiris is still connected to the Bligvul Harigam La'achrei Sha'oil Mislabish Ba'kelim. So even after that light dresses up in the vessels, it dresses up in the 10 spheres of Atzilus, and that way it gets run, that runs the world. And then it comes down into the world. It's still connected with the Ein Sof HaBligvul, which is inside of these kelim. As explained in that Mamorim, in the continuation of the year, in the year Tofresh Samach Vov, that the fact that we see that even when we have in the nature, there is the consistent, the constant, the continuous, always. In nature, yesh inyan hatmidis. It is the constant, always. Hagam, sha'atevahu mehachayis haliki shemelubash b'hanivroim shu'chayis mugbal. That while the nature that comes from the godly energy which is dressed in the created being is a limited shu'chayis mugbal. That's a limited chayis that comes through the kelim, and that is a limited chayis. But why do we see that it's an endless, it's always, it's a constant? That shows that it's something which is more than just a limit, more than nature. How does that happen? Is kishoyrish hachayis hamelubesh b'hanivroim, because the root of that vitality which is dressed up in the created being, kav, comes from the line of the kav, the sheshor she'umayir sof shalifnei hatzimtzum, whose root is from the light of the Ein Sof, which is before the tzimtzum. V'hashleimus the teva u'al yidei shenimshach bo yagilu shelamayla mahateva. And what makes complete nature, what's the wholesomeness, is when you have the revelation which is above teva in it. So therefore, the fact that you have the nature being continuous all the time, which is an expression of the infinite, that makes nature full. So already, by definition, nature has in itself the Ein Sof that's higher. So why is it that through Mesiras Nefesh, we bring about that we're mamshich from above nature into nature, when nature itself has in it, the wholesomeness of nature has in itself the unlimited, because of the continuous, the consistent. To me, this is an expression of that oir which is infinite, which is connected to the Eir HaKav, which is connected to the Eir Sof for Lifnat Tzimtzum. So maybe the Rebbe says, one could argue and say, yeah, let it be that you have always in Teva, you have really above Teva, you have higher than nature. In nature, but it's not something which is visible. In order for it to be visible, the Eibusher has to once in a while sort of make nace, a miracle, so that you can see that even nature is above nature. We could say the kivon dezeh shakodesh baruch hu manig es ha'olam al pi teva, since the fact that the Eibusher always leads the world by nature, hu tamid b'shaveh, this is every day equal. The b'chol yom v'yom, because every day and day, Hashemesh zerachas b'mizrach, the shemesh, the sun, sets out in the east, starts out in the east, shines from the east, v'shekaz b'mayriv, and it sets in the west. And similar is all matters of Teva. Teva is consistently, always happens. Lochein, because of that, because it happens all the time, a nikar begilui shakodesh baruch hu hamanik esoilum. So it's not openly recognizable that it is Hashem who leads the world. V'yesh mokum l'tos, and then there's room for a mistake. Sha'olam isnaig ba'atzmei, that the world runs on its own. There's a possibility of a mistake like that. But through the miracles, occasionally Hashem changes the way nature works. So that proves to us that also Teva is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So b'meila we need the miracles. So the reason we need the miracles, really, nature is a miracle in of itself. The fact that it's continuous, that means that it's a miracle. But sometimes a person can mistakenly not see the miracle because it happens all the time. So at once in a while you need a miracle, and that's the purpose of the miracle. But that only means that what makes Teva wholesome, אבל לפי זה, השלמות the Teva היא שיהיה ניכר בגילוי שהטבע הוא אלוקות. That means that what makes Teva wholesome, so that you can tell openly that Teva is really godly, so that you don't make a mistake. The purpose of the Nes, what it does is that you should be able to tell that nature is godliness. But in the Mamorim he says, it doesn't say to recognize that Teva is Elikus. The Mamorim says, through the service of Mesiras Nefesh, Nimshach b'Teva Hagilu d'Lamayla Mateva. He's just telling you that in Teva, we get the revelation of higher than Teva. But how is that? The revelation of higher than Teva in Teva is always. That's not something only with a miracle. Mele, if he would have said that is to show us that Teva is above nature, we understand. But that's not what he says. In the Mamorim he says that through Mesiras Nefesh Avodah, you get a gilu of higher than Teva. And not something to prove to us and that it will be visible to us. So what does that mean? Gimel. It's explained in many Mamorim. The shoyresh hateva hu mishem elikim. The root of nature comes from the name Elikim. As we see that Elikim begematria hateva, the numerical value of the word Elikim equals hateva. That is equal to the name of Elikim. V'shoyresh hanisim, and where is the root for miracles? U'mishem havaya. That comes from Shem Havaya. U'mevayir Shom explains over there the B'Shem Havaya Hudas Elyon, that in the name of Hashem, that is the view of the Supreme. There's two views. There is Hashem's perspective view, and there's our perspective view. The Havaya is the view of the Supreme knowledge, is the way Hashem knows it. What does it differ? In Hashem's view, in the Das Elyon, is Shalamaylo Yesh Ulamata Ayin. That is that above, whatever is higher, spiritual, Hashem, that's an entity. That really exists. But Ulamata, whatever is below, Ayin is nothing, doesn't really exist. They don't have no independency. The real entity is Hashem. And whatever is below is non-existent because it doesn't have an independent existence. It needs Hashem for its existence. So it's really ayin, it's nothing. Hainu. That is, shekol his habus. That all of the creation, he ayin ve'efes, ve'kule kamekele choshiv. It's like nothing, zero. Everything before him is considered like nothing. There's nothing been created relative to Hashem. That's the Shem Havaya. B'Shem Elikim. But in the name of Hashem, Udas Tacht, over there is the view of the bottom, the lower view. Shehabriya hi me'ayin liyesh. That creation is from nothing, from ex nihilo, from ayin, and now it makes us into an entity. Which means we feel we are there. We are Hainish HaNivroim, Heim Metzias Yesh. The created being are an entity of something. We're a being. We came, we're here. But v'hakoyach ha'liki shemahave oisam, that godly power which creates them, brings them into being, nikra b'shem ayin, is called ayin. It's ayin means that it's not in existence, which means ayin she'eini musa. It doesn't mean here that it doesn't exist, but means we can understand. We are here. We know that we're here, and Hashem is, we don't know. Eina musa, not grasp. So this is the difference between the Shem Havaya and the Shem Elikim of Nes and Teva. Yeshloimar, it says that adds the bracket Shual Derech HaMevuher b'Moka Macha. So similar to what's explained elsewhere, the Hishavus Shem Elikim, that the creation that comes from the name Elikim, hu b'derech hislapshus, in the way that it dresses up. Like we say, Bereshis Bara Elikim, that in the beginning, Bara Elikim means he creates it, he invests himself in creation. That is the name of Elikim. The Zem Moire She Hu Moker Li'inyan Ha His Havus. That points that Elikim is a source for creation. So since it is bara, there is a relationship. He is the source. He creates them, means that there is a relationship there. The lochein hanivroim shemizhavim mimenu hem tevsim mokem legabe. That's why the created being that are created from the Shem Elikim, they take up space. In other words, he considers them, they are something relative to the Shem Elikim because he's a mocker to them and he has a relationship to them. And their subjugation, v'abitlu shelohem, and the subjugation of those that created from the Shem Elikim, hurak bitul hayesh, that's only the subjugation of an entity. That's das tachten shelamata yesh. That's the lower view, that below is the yesh. So that's Bereshis Bara Elikim. So Elikim invests itself, and because it invests itself, that means that the Shem Elikim has a connection to the created being, and that's why the created beings are only bitl yesh, because they're an entity and they subjugate themselves to Hashem. However, the Ishavus Shem Havaya, but the creation that comes from the name of Havaya, he be'oifun the derech memela. That's sort of, it's instead of Boro, invest himself in Nivro, they're sort of created by themselves. As we say in the Pasuk, Yahalulu Hashem Hashem, praise the name of Havaya, Kutzibov and Nivro. You commanded they were created, not Boro, but Nivro. They as if they were created by themselves. Shazem Moired, that points to the fact that he is separate, distinct from the idea of creation. And that's why so by definition, the Shem Havaya is separate from the creation. So Hanivroim Shemishavim Mimenu, those created beings that are created from him, they don't take up any space, doesn't consider them at all, because they're not at all a relationship. They're bittul memitzias, and therefore their subjugation is not bittul hayesh. That's not an entity that is bittul, but bittul memitzias, a non-entity, total negation. This is das elyon, which becomes the view of the Moshe lamata ayin, that lamata there is nothing, because there's no relationship over there, even because there is no doesn't take up any space of at all bittul mitzis. So it's explained in the Mamorim, the kemoishahu beinyan Hashem is just as it is in the matter of the names of the name we say Shem Havaya and Shem Elikim. The Shem Havaya hu das elyon. Then the name of Havaya, that's considered the supreme knowledge of opinion. The das elyon, that there is no existence. And the name of Elikim, that's the opinion lower, that it's a yesh me'ayin. So similarly, it's also in the aspect of miracle and nature, which are extended from Havaya Elikim. The conduct of nature comes from the perspective of das tachten, the lower view. And the miracles that are beyond nature, das elyon. And they come from the das elyon. And basically, as the Rebbe will say, when there's a miracle that comes down in the world connects the das elyon with the das tachten together, because you have nature together with above nature within the nature. The Rebbe will conclude. The Rebbe says in the brackets that shahashaychus the nes v'teva, the das elyon with das tachten, that the connection that nes and teva are related, they're connected to das elyon and das tachten. Nes is das elyon and teva is das tachten. He loirak mitzad shorshim. It's not just because they're rooted. The shoyrish hanisim havaya, the root of miracles come from Shem Havaya, the shoyrish hateva, and the root of teva is from Elikim. But it's more than that. Elo mitzagam mitzad inyan v'nes v'teva atzmo. But also because of the idea of just what a miracle and nature are on their own. But what is the idea over here? Just by a nature and miracles, that alone represents das elyon and das tacht. Dan hogas hatevahi, what is the conduct of nature? Shakodesh Baruch Hu manhig as kol nivro lifi inyone. That is Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu leads every created being according to their matter. The Zem Moira, that points to the fact Sheban Hogazu Hanivroim Tev Simokim, that in that conduct the created beings take up space, which is the same idea Lamata Yesh, that there is a Yesh, there's an entity here. The fact that the Eibishter leads in the way of nature, each one according to their specific conduct, that tells us that they are a yesh. But what is the miraculous conduct? That is an expression that the Eibishter leads the world as he wants. Not according to the characteristic and the nature of the created being. because in that conduct, they don't take up space where there's non-existence. So both, the Rebbe says, Nes and Teva come from Havaya. Nes comes from Havaya, and Teva comes from Elikim. And Havaya is Das Elyon, and Elikim is Das Tachten. But besides that, besides the Derudin, just Nes itself, and Teva itself, Teva by definition shows us that there's a Yeshir, the Das Tachten, because that's why everything is measured and according to the existence. So that means that there is a Yeshir. It's only Bitla Yesh. But when we talk about Nes, it goes according to the way Hashem wants it to go. So there is a Bitl of B'Metzias, it's a level of Ayin. What happens, Vayidei Hanisim Hanim Shochim Ba'ilom, through the miracles that extend into the world, that also in nature you bring down the revelation that is higher than nature, the Das Tachten, the Das Elyon. That makes that connection of the lower view, that Lamata is Yesh, and above I, the Das Elyon, the upper view. That make it together, one with one. Because you will within world, you see the higher than world. Shagam b'das tachten meir hagilu d'das elyon. That also in the lower das tachten, you can also see the das elyon. You see the higher than nature. You see that miracle that comes down into the world.